This is Hayden Sparks with the Texan. We are here in Houston at the Republican Party of Texas Convention. I am here with Representative Bryan Slaton. Representative, thank you for joining us.
Happy to be here. Good to see you.
First of all, sir, I want to acknowledge you were a fierce advocate during the 87th legislature for Mr. Jeff Younger, who was also an unsuccessful candidate for the Texas House. What are you hearing from your constituents about your efforts to prohibit gender modification surgeries on children? And sorry, go ahead.
They were very happy. I mean, they all say it's so sad that we have to do this, right? It's sad that where we're at is we have to protect children from mutilation in their body and sexualizing them. And so, I don't know, it's been fine. You know, there's people who didn't support me. I ran against the incumbent that was there before, and now, like with this issue, they're like, "Hey, you're the guy. We're proud of what you're doing because we got to stop what they're doing to our kids." And so it's been really warm and receptive. It really has, because I believe this issue it transcends party lines. There are Democrats that are like, yeah, we shouldn't mess with kids, right? And they have a hard time admitting it because their base will come after them. But all in all, it's been, pretty good feedback from the people, but they're all really sad that we actually didn't protect kids. I mean, I'm glad I tried, but James Younger isn't safer since the Republicans ended the 87th session. That's the sad part.
Representative Slaton, you mentioned that it's a bipartisan issue, that there are Democrats and Republicans who agree with this, but also you expressed that the Republican Party isn't doing enough to advance your proposals. Democrats would contend that this is an undue encroachment on the ability of families to make what they would characterize as health care decisions for their children. How would you respond to that point?
Well, health care decisions involve finding things medically wrong with an individual and trying to make them better that you could prove. Like they maybe have cancer, they have whatever could be going on, gastrointestinal problems, breathing issues, whatever, you can measure you're improving that for them. The gender modification of children is removing or chemically castrating healthy body parts that haven't even gone through puberty. Right? I mean, a lot of these issues with kids get corrected through puberty. It's how God made us. And so it's the fact that it's medical procedures on healthy body parts, doing double mastectomies on young girls. They have healthy body parts. So it's not health care at all. I mean, there's no way, because that health care implies you're trying to make someone healthy and better. This, it has to deal with mentally, trying to convince a child, well, I would say probably manipulating a child, that they're a different gender than they obviously are. And that's not healthy in their development. And then you do these permanent, irreversible surgeries, chemical castration, and there's no going back. And that child's life is altered forever, probably more to make an adult feel more secure with themselves than that child actually want the procedure. Because if you've heard any of these stories from these people who went through the gender modification surgeries and the regret they have and the pain they go through or lack thereof, like I read one story the other day, this person said they're completely numb in their entire growing. I said, somebody could stab me with a knife, I'd never know. I mean, they've major problems.
So I want to touch on the urgency that you're expressing with this issue because of the irreversibility of some of these procedures. What are your intentions for getting the legislature's attention during the 88th legislature and having this issue be a priority amid all the other items of business that the legislature will be considering?
Well, we have to protect children, those who can't protect themselves.
But in terms of strategy?
Sure. I just feel like we have to be urgent because, I mean, we're going to be held accountable. This is a government of we the people. I tell people when I talk to churches, we are all going to be held accountable for how we treat others and how our society and public policy treats others because this is a government of we the people. And we have to act because we can't let another year go by and this happen to children. Now, as far as strategy, I don't know yet. I know one thing that will help us is Lieutenant Governor Patrick. If they're going to be aggressive and push, it will help in the House. I imagine a lot of things are going to be slowed down in the House. if not killed altogether. And my idea is we just have to push forward everywhere and every way we can until leadership is fully behind the idea. And what I mean by fully behind the idea, they have to be willing to call it child abuse, from the counseling to the prescribing of medication to the actual physical surgeries. Because if we only focus on the liability insurance so they can be sued, well, that means they can counsel these kids and get them to another state to get it, or they can still prescribe the medication to them and do it to them. It's child abuse top to bottom. We have to be aggressive. And as far as the strategy, my idea is we're going to have to fight every chance we can.
Representative Slaton, I want to shift gears a little bit because this is an issue that is important to you and you've worked a lot on it. It's not the only issue, though, that you worked on in the legislature. The Texas House, you introduced legislation that would require the state to continue the border wall.
Yeah.
And lawmakers did work on border security appropriations, billions of dollars for Operation Lone Star. How would you assess the state's efforts now against illegal immigration, and what do you think should be done in the 88th legislature?
Well, I would say we haven't done that great. I mean, the border crossings get higher and higher, record amount. Human trafficking's out of control. Drug trafficking out of control. So we can brag that we spent more money than prior years, but that's something we've been doing for 12 years as Republicans, and the border keeps getting more and more out of control. So I think we need to stop doing the same things over and over. I think a lot of Republican voters realize that we are putting more and more of their money at work, but not really securing the border. I think there's things we need to do. We need to label we need to stand up for us as Texans. And what I mean by that, like my border wall bill, if the federal government's not going to do it, we need to do it, send them the invoice and charge them interest. And then we need to label the cartels as narco-terrorist organizations. We need to up the penalties for people involved in human trafficking and cartels. I would totally be fine with upping like those penalties to receiving capital punishment. Something we're going to have to do something to shake it up and
capital punishment for the cartel
members. If you're in the cartels doing human trafficking and you're arrested in Texas, they should be eligible for capital punishment. And I'm talking not just the people hosting. I'm talking anybody involved, like these glorified Uber drivers. What I joke and say that kind of, I don't know if I should joke on that, but these people that go to drive these people from point A to point B and get paid, $5,000-$10,000. They're a part of the logistics operation. So we need to find a way to punish people involved with human trafficking way more.
So you would support assertive legislation to make it a capital offense punishable by death.
Yes.
To traffic human beings into Texas.
Yes. Modern day slavery, it deserves a pretty stiff penalty.
You've talked a lot about your compassion for children, both on border security and the gender modification issue. For a final question, you have a background in youth ministry. Would you reflect on how your background in youth ministry is going to influence your decisions in the next legislature? Well,
one thing I was convinced of is that, my job as a youth minister wasn't to be the primary spiritual influence in the kid's life. A lot of people think that, right? Because we think we want piano lessons, take them to the piano instructor. You want baseball, take them to the baseball person. But my job, or any minister's job, is to help that parent be the primary spiritual influence to the child. They have way more impact on the children than we do, and they can do it in less time. I mean, I could have 6 years in youth ministry helping children, and an adult can tear down everything I've tried to help build up, or they can far exceed my ceiling in way less time. I mean, like I would tell people about church camp, right? We could go to send kids to church camp, spend whatever money you want, and it could all be ruined in a 15-minute drive home. And so that's where I come from. That's where, some of it came from with my hospital visitation amendment that nullified CDC and Fauci and the others, was letting family and loved ones be with their, loved ones in the hospital. So it's going to influence everything, trying to get parents more involved in kids' life, keep families together, and let Texans spend more of their money and not the government spend more of their money, because they know what to do with it better than the government.
Representative Slaton, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to catch up with you. Appreciate it, sir.
Good to see you. Thanks.